From the age of 15 to the age of 31, Barbara spent 3/4 of her life in the hospital. The rest of the time she was being cared for at home. She had chronic pulmonary disease with frequent infections and pneumonia. A surgeon, Dr. Harold Adolph, describes her condition toward the end of her suffering. Barbara was one of the most hopelessly ill patients I ever saw. She was diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic as having multiple sclerosis. She had been admitted to the local hospital 7 times in the year that I was first asked to see her. Each time she was expected to die. One diaphragm was completely paralyzed so that the lung was non-functional, and the other worked less than 50%. She had a tracheotomy tube in her neck for breathing, always required extra oxygen, and could speak only in short sentences because she easily became breathless. Her abdomen was swollen grotesquely because the muscles of her intestine did not work, nor would her bladder function. She had not been able to walk for 7 years. Her hand and arm movements were poorly coordinated, and she was blind except for 2 small areas in each eye. She was hooked up to various machines. Because her bowel was paralyzed, Dr. Adolph disconnected it, and doctors provided her instead with an outside hookup. Another machine helped her breathe. Because she could not swallow, she had a feeding tube in her stomach. Barbara needed so much care that, when she was home, a nurse or nurse's aide remained with her most of the time. In her words, she was wrapped up like a pretzel. Her feet pointed down, unable to rest flat against the floor, even had someone tried to stand her up. Her arms remained tight against her chest. Normally, when anyone tried to pull one of her arms away from her body, it would automatically clamp back up against her chest. Her hands curled up against the inside of her wrists, leaving them full of dead skin, except when, periodically, someone would pry them open to clean them out. Dr. Thomas Marshall had assumed her palliative care in what appeared to be the final weeks of her life. He recalls that her body was contracted in a permanent fetal position. Her hands were so permanently flexed that her fingers nearly touched her wrists. He sadly explained to the family that the next infection would likely kill her, and everyone agreed not to prolong her suffering with any further hospitalization or by attempting resuscitation with CPR. Unable to free herself from her pretzel position or even to breathe normally, Barbara felt trapped inside her own body. Now, after 16 years of physical deterioration, doctors had sent her home from the hospital one last time. They had regretfully warned her parents, "It's unlikely that she'll survive long enough for us to see her here again." The Voice. For more than 4 years, Barbara had not been able even to visit her Wesleyan church in Wheaton, Illinois. Nevertheless, her faithful pastor had visited her every day during that time. Now it was Pentecost Sunday, June 7th, 1981, and 2 friends from her church visited her after the morning worship service. This time they showed up laden with cards and letters. Someone had called in a prayer request about her to the local Christian radio station, WMBI. Now, 450 letters came to her in care of her church. As her friends began reading the new letters to her, she suddenly heard a booming, authoritative voice over her left shoulder. "My child, get up and walk." Because of the breathing tube, she could speak only when someone plugged the hole in her neck. They would do this whenever she looked agitated, and her friends, seeing her current agitation, plugged the hole. "God just told me to get up and walk," she gasped. Her friends grew quiet, but Barbara insisted. "Go get my family," she ordered urgently. Feeling her excitement, they dashed out of the room to find her family. The sense of urgency in Barbara's heart suddenly became too intense for her to wait for their return. Normally, it would take 2 people about 2 minutes to get her out of bed. They would slide her onto a lapboard and then into a chair. But now she did not have time to ponder what should have been.